even though leaving at my job at age 30 was super cool, man, are you kidding me? How many 30-year-olds get to leave their job because they're financially independent? Not very many. So very, in the very small minority across the country. But here's the deal: it came at a very, very big cost. What do I mean by that? We were working in and on our business 6 days a week for 5 years consistently, really 7 days a week, because we were still thinking about doing game planning, all that stuff. So 7 days a week for 5 years straight, consistently, every single week, no holidays, no breaks. We were for 5 years straight. As soon as I was able to leave my job at age 30, again, we were able to go even harder, and traveling all over the East Coast and even Midwest. We were hitting some spots. This is all prior to the technology days that we're in right now. Tells you how old school I am. And we were so focused on our business goals, and combine that with being completely lack of self-aware, and also neglected the social awareness of how my wife was doing, what she was struggling also, as well as, again, combine all that stuff with how hard we were working. We literally drove our wheels off, flew our wings off the airplane. We outflew the capacity of the infrastructure of our vehicle. Entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers, welcome to episode 70. What? Yes, episode 70, retired at 30 and burnout. For those of y'all that are watching on YouTube, great to see you all. For those of y'all that are listening on our podcast, thank you so much for listening. Let me start off by sharing some exciting news. We are almost at 14,000 downloads. Super exciting. Again, never thought that we would be here at this point, but very, very thankful for those of you all that have been following us along this journey of emotional growth and development. Okay, next, we have a course that we finally have launched. What? Yes, we have finally launched our EQ Accelerator Course, and the cart will be open until tonight at midnight. Tonight at midnight. You can find that course and the details about that course at eqforentrepreneurs.com/EQA. eqforentrepreneurs.com/EQA. It is going to be a life transforming course. We're super excited about it. If your company or a friend's company needs emotional intelligence equipping, please let us know. You can reach out to us at info@eqforentrepreneurs.com to set something up. We've done a handful already. Man, it has been awesome. We've received some great feedback. In fact, just recently, another piece of the exciting news, this is kind of a personal one I want to share with you all. We spoke to 10 senior leaders from the Classical Conversations International Homeschool Program, and one of the leaders had met me about 5 or 6 years ago and said, "Man, Noble, I just want to affirm you in your own personal emotional growth journey, because when I met you 5 or 6 years ago, man, you were very different." She said, today, which was just a few days ago, she said, you seem much more at peace, and you seem like you have a lot more substance and depth. And what she didn't know is that I'm a recovering people pleaser addict, and that what she probably felt when she first met me 5 or 6 years ago was the angst and the anxiety and the stress of trying to please everybody. So that was really positive feedback for me. And man, I was so thankful to hear a third party, someone that I, hardly ever see, maybe once a year. I had seen her maybe once a year. And again, the first time was 5 or 6 years ago. And she gave me that really positive feedback, and I was really excited to hear that. Okay, are you ready for the story? Retired at 30 and burnout. So let me ask you all, have any of you entrepreneurs, leaders, or influencers ever experienced burnout? And maybe the question should be more accurately asked, How often or how many times have you experienced burnout? How did it feel? So think about that. When you were burnt out before, when you've been burnt out, how did that feel? Let me just share some words describing how I have felt when I have felt burnout before. Exhausted, overwhelmed, wits end, a little helpless, and even a little hopeless. And of course, that depends on the severity of the burnout, but I have definitely been there, where at the level of burnout where I felt hopeless and helpless, weak, no creativity, foggy, difficulty thinking, lack of clarity, potentially even a lack of purpose, vulnerable, on shaky ground, unsure of myself, survival mode, little to no output, definitely unproductive, fragile, lonely, frazzled, unstable, and insecure, just to name a few. You all may have your own words. Maybe I hit some of the ways, some of those, emotions that you have felt as well, but those are some that I have felt. So now to our story, my story personally. So we became part of the FIRE movement. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that before, but it's financially independent, retired early at the age of 30. Now we replaced my wife's income at age 27, my income at age 30. And now I say the FIRE movement, but that's not totally accurate. And here's why. That's what everyone in my industry called it, was being retired when you could leave your job. But that's not totally accurate, because in reality, I was working harder after I left my job in my own business than when I had a job. And so the more accurate statement would be I was able to be full time in our business without going to a 9-to-5 job. So it wasn't, technically retirement. Again, whatever that means, right? Because that can even be kind of a broad, nebulous term there. But even though leaving at my job at age 30 was super cool, man, are you kidding me? How many 30-year-olds get to leave their job because they're financially independent? Not very many. So very, in the very small minority across the country. But here's the deal: it came at a very, very big cost. What do I mean by that? We were working in and on our business 6 days a week for 5 years consistently, really 7 days a week, because we were still thinking about doing game planning, all that stuff. So 7 days a week for 5 years straight, consistently, every single week, no holidays, no breaks. We were for 5 years straight. As soon as I was able to leave my job at age 30, again, we were able to go even harder. And traveling all over the East Coast and even Midwest, we were hitting some spots. This is all prior to the technology days that we're in right now. Tells you how old school I am. And we were so focused on our business goals, and combine that with being completely lack of self-aware, and also neglected the social awareness of how my wife was doing, which she was struggling also, as well as, again, combine all that stuff with how hard we were working. We literally drove our wheels off, flew our wings off the airplane. We outflew the capacity of the infrastructure of our vehicle. And I literally got to a point where I literally didn't know what day of the week it was. Honestly, I'd gotten to like, babe, what day is? I don't even know what day it is. But at that point, we had both left our jobs, so I was like, hey, let's take some time off. Like, man, we're grinding so hard. Like, let's take a break. We developed the financial resources and income to have some more freedom, so to speak. So let's take some time off. Well, here's what happened. And due to my emotional immaturity and being so smoked, I hadn't set any parameters for time off. So I just said, hey, let's take time off, because I was so smoked. And so was my wife. And so taking a weekend off turned into taking a week off. A week off turned into taking a month off. A month off turned into literally taking a year off. And as soon as that time off began, that literally began the downward spiral. I had no boundaries, personally or professionally. And so it was a very long, dark, and deep spiral that I went into. I had lost my purpose. I had lost my direction. My relationship, even my relationship with the Lord, was totally works based. It was totally performance based, And so, there's so many layers of my life that got impacted. Well, I would say there wasn't an area of my life that was not impacted by the level of burnout that I was experiencing. And so to say that burnout had a negative impact on me and every area of my life is a complete understatement. And my prayer is that your burnout experience is not as catastrophic as mine was, because mine was very, very extreme. So 3 very important questions, and I'll tell you it just so let me tell you the other end of the story. So I was in a very dark spot for 2 years, very, very dark spot for 2 years, and then probably another 8 years in a dark spot, but not as dark as those 2 years. So really, for a full decade, basically, I was in a very, very dark spot, with 2 of those 10 years being very, very dark. Okay, so again, but thankfully, I slowly came out of a glide path, slowly out of that dark space. Now, so three very important questions in the burnout that I had experienced. How did it happen? How did I get out? How to prevent it from happening again? How did it happen? How did I get out? And then how to prevent it from happening again? And here's the deal: to the entrepreneur, to the leader, there's I don't know many leaders that struggle with work ethic, or entrepreneurs that struggle with work ethic, again, unless there's some sort of emotional reason. I think I talked about that the last episode, or one of the last episodes, that if an entrepreneur is not working hard, there's an emotional reason probably buried deep inside you somewhere that is preventing you from being able to work at your full potential. So do that emotional work, and again, check out one of the previous episodes where I go into that a little bit deeper. But it's a slippery slope, right? Burnout is a slippery slope because, again, as entrepreneurs, I think working and working hard is our comfort zone. That's the easy place, right, for us to operate in. And so, again, it can be a very slippery slope, especially when you're in an environment that can exacerbate the tendency for burnout. Okay, so again, those 3 questions: what happened, how did I get out, and how to prevent it from happening again. I'm going to address those. And under each of those categories, those main categories, I've got a few questions underneath each one of those. So question number 1, what happened? So number 1, I lacked self-awareness. That's what happened. I lacked self-awareness. And the consequences of that were obviously catastrophic, personally and professionally. So is this warm, fuzzy, emotional intelligence business, does this really impact the bottom line? It rocked my bottom line. It didn't affect it. I mean, it destroyed my bottom line almost. So number 1, I lack self-awareness. So the question underneath that, number 1, is, what is your level of self-awareness? And now the real question is, what was your inner circle? So your social circle, what would your professional or social circle say that your self-awareness is? Because a lot of times, or many times, leaders have been known to over-exaggerate the degree of or level of leadership ability that they have. And there's a book called Leadership and Self-Deception that my buddy Scott, who's a retired command sergeant major from the Army, EOD guy, super great guy, recommended that book to me. A lot of stats in there. Definitely recommend checking that book out. So again, what is your level of self-awareness? But it's got to be accurate. Now, I know that's subjective, and it's based on, your answer is based on your own level of self-awareness. So that's why it's good to get another outside perspective. So number 2, under what happened, there was a couple who had actually tried to get us to slow down, but due to number 1, being me, I lacked self-awareness, I wasn't having it. They're like, Noble, hey man, I think you may want to pump the brakes a little bit, chill out a little bit, take some time off. I wasn't having it. I was like, hey, we're fine. In fact, I was like, hey, the harder we work, the better we are. And I love it. I love the grind, right? Embrace the grind, embrace the hustle. And that was my response. Well, here's the question under number 2. Do you have someone to help hold you accountable, and have you given them permission to call you out, right? When you may be out of balance. So not just, hey, I've got some friends, but have you given them permission to specifically pay attention to your level of your pace, your in the military we call it op tempo, your operational tempo. So that's something you want to consider there. Number 2 there. Number 3, part of the reason for my response back in number two, was like, or back in number one, I'm like, hey, we're fine, was again due to my lack of self-awareness, but also because of my incredible neediness for people pleasing and my addiction to people pleasing. And the question underneath that is, have you reflected recently on why you're pursuing your goals? Is there something deeper, like people pleasing, that's actually driving you, or some other unhealthy reason that is driving you that you have not consciously made the connection to? Very important question to answer. So have you reflected on why you're pursuing your goals? Is there something deeper, like people pleasing, or some other unhealthy place why you're pursuing your goals? Number four, again, in terms of what happened. Number four, the business culture and environment that we were operating in celebrates 100% of every meeting, conference, discussion, two things: somebody's work ethic and their results, period. So, unsurprisingly, that's what I pursued. You can tell the culture of an organization by what they talk about the most and what they celebrate and award or reward. And among those two things, what they celebrate and reward or award trumps what they talk about. The analogy is this. I've had many people say, oh man, family's so important to me. Family's so important to me. But they stay at work until 10 o'clock at night, 6 days a week, 7 days. They're going in on the weekends too. Oh, but no, man. Oh, you just don't understand how important family is to me. Show me your time budget and show me your financial budget, and that will actually tell me what you truly value. You may say one thing, but again, your actions speak so loud or speak so loudly, I can't hear what you say. Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you say. That's the equivalent of what gets rewarded and awarded or promoted and celebrated trumps what is being said a company's values are. So just be aware of that. So here's the question for that point, number four. Are you in a healthy or unhealthy culture and environment? What does your culture reward and celebrate? Is what is getting rewarded in your company, culture, environment reflect your core values? Actually, accurately reflect your core values? And is your current culture and environment leading its leaders to burnout? What's getting celebrated? That is what's really important to that company, to the company that you may be a part of. Okay, next, the next big bracket here is, how did I get out? How did I get out of that burnout, that super dark place? Slowly, number one. It definitely was not a fast process. And why? I think largely because of my lack of emotional intelligence and extreme, which is also a function of this next thing I'm going to say, is that I also had an extreme lack of self-awareness. So again, I think that's why it happened so slowly. Number two, the other thing of how did I get out is I did, fortunately, in spite of number one, I was still very coachable and teachable. Number three, Kathy reached out to a couple and told them I was struggling. So they reached out and I was willing to sit down and discuss where I was at. Number four, I took ownership of where I was at. That's number four. I took ownership. They recommended professional counseling because they're not professional counselors. So I pursued it. I owned it and I pursued it. I didn't know how to get out of the situation by myself. I needed some other tools and resources. And thankfully, I owned it. I was still teachable and coachable and pursued professional help. So again, for you, if you need professional help in some of these areas, man, pursue it. You are worth it. You matter. You are worth it. Your goals, your dreams are worth you getting professional help for whatever you may need to work on. The top influencers and athletes all have professional coaches. Why not you? The next big and the last bracket here, how to prevent it from happening again. How to prevent burnout from happening again. Number one, begin intentionally growing your emotional intelligence by working on your self-awareness. Begin working on your self-awareness. Number two, get a few different people in different circles of your life that you give the permission to hold you accountable, to observe you, to just be a fly on the wall kind of in your life. Not that, hey, that they have to take on this false responsibility of, hey, if I get out of balance, it's your responsibility to. No, it's not their responsibility, right? They gotta, that's not their responsibility. It's not their job. So as a friend, as a common courtesy, in the event, in our relationship and in our interactions, if you see me kind of going off the rails, I'm giving you permission as my friend. Please give me feedback, give me safe, constructive feedback that I can digest and receive to keep me in balance, if you will. And again, I know even that term is a little tough, right? For entrepreneurs and leaders, balance. What is balance? That's a whole nother discussion. So number two, get a few different people in different circles. It's got to be different circles, because here's the challenge because this has happened to me before. Personal experience is why I say different circles. If you only give permission to people in the same circle to kind of hold you accountable, if you will, they all have the same mindset. They all think the same. They all have the same point of view. They all have the same perspective. And that might not be healthy. Again, especially if you're in a current toxic environment that is already leading to burnout. They may be encouraging you, you're not working hard enough. You need to work even harder. You can, I've heard this stuff, y'all. You can see your family. You can spend time with your children once you're financially independent. Then you can spend every day of every week with them, 7 days a week. In my opinion, y'all, that is not healthy. That is absolutely not healthy. I could go on and on about that. So that's why I encourage you to give permission to people in your circles from different circles of your life, not just in one circle. Number three, make a list. So how to prevent it from happening again? Make a list of things that refresh and recharge you. Make a list. Take some time. Pause this. Pause the YouTube video. Pause the podcast real quick. Make a list. What are some things? This is important stuff, y'all. How do you recharge? Do you recharge? Not your family, you. Now, your family is a whole nother list. That's another great thing to do, is to create a family list of what recharges your family. But in many cases, that may be very different than what recharges you specifically. Number four, schedule in advance, either once a day, a couple times a week, but really as often as you need to implement and apply the list that you just got done making in number three with what charges you. For me, it's reading the Bible, it's praying, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, listening to tunes, taking a power nap, a little ranger nap, family time, time in nature, in the mountains, snowboarding, hanging out with my homies. Those are all things that recharge me. So schedule in advance. Now, you could always add the spontaneous thing where, oh man, I'm feeling myself getting smoked and smoke. Okay, I need to take some time off right now. I'm going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do some deep thinking. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to play the piano. Again, whatever it is, whatever recharges you, play the guitar. And so you can do spontaneous stuff, but also make sure you include in there some hard times that are already pre-planned in your schedule. Because again, what I noticed in my past is the harder I worked, the less aware I became. The harder I worked, the less self-aware I became. So that's why if you schedule those hard times in your schedule, your non-negotiables in your calendar, whether it's once a week or a couple times a week, or a couple times a month, whatever that is, you can that can kind of be another parameter that can kind of help keep you on track. And I just want to reiterate, the value of emotional intelligence in my life has literally been priceless, and it has impacted every single area of my life. And this is important based on the topic, it has also prevented me from experiencing burnout again. Now, not that I haven't had some valleys since then, not that I haven't had some tough times through then. If you've been following me on Facebook or social media, obviously, I'm very transparent in my journey. I've shared many of my valleys as well. but I haven't experienced the degree of burnout that I did, 10, 15 years ago, however many years ago that was. So again, the three things on burnout: how did it happen? How did I get out? And how to prevent it from happening again. And then I shared some other questions in there under each one of those headings that I hope you take the time to answer for yourself, because I think it's super important. So for those of you that are ready to begin your EQ growth journey or take it to the next level, please check out our EQ Accelerator course at eqforentrepreneurs.com/EQA. Again, that's eqforentrepreneurs.com/EQA.